This is obviously a very important issue to us here in the district, and we have consistently and always taken the position that we are a proponent of the development of Marcellus Shale natural gas. I'm a proponent so long as it's done safely, so long as it's done reliably. I believe what the DEC has done up to this point in time with the moratorium and taking a hard look at the potential environmental impacts was the right course. It's taking the time and energy necessary to gather the science and data to come to conclusions whether or not there's going to be adverse environmental impacts on our area. Yeah, I think it's 3 minutes, I'm sorry. Now you threw me off. That's okay. But the bottom line is, I don't need to give you a cookie cutter answer to this because this is how I feel. And what you're going to see in this is exactly what our positions are, what our opinions are. And the bottom line is that by the DEC taking the time to study the issue, it's going to come to a reasoned approach and we'll be able to move forward with it. I want to come at this issue from a positive perspective because I do support the development of it for its economic benefits that are going to be seen in our community. We've been in the northern tier of Pennsylvania. We've walked 2 rigs. We've went back and talked to people that live in the northern tier of Pennsylvania. And it's not only the jobs that it will bring to the area, it's also the indirect economic opportunities that are there. You talk to hotel owners, you talk to restaurant owners, they're flooded. They're flooded with economic development that's occurring in their backyard. I also come to this position also because I recognize I'm running for a federal office. And we have a direct national security concern because we have our dependency on foreign energy supplies that must be addressed. And I'm not saying that natural gas in the Marcellus Shale is going to cure that entire problem, but it's a step in the right direction. So I've come to the conclusion, looking at science and data, that we have taken the appropriate measures, and now we have to move forward in a reasoned, logical, based on science and data approach to put proper regulations in place and go to the next step. So we support it.
Yeah, you keep talking about we, and I finally figured out who we are. We are the gas drilling companies that have given you over $30,000. That's who you must have toured northern Pennsylvania with. You see, Tom, I keep trying to offer this to you. It's a report from Pennsylvania's Department of Environmental Protection documenting with science and evidence and facts the well water contamination, the road destruction that has occurred. And I please beg you to get educated on this because it's these people's drinking water we're talking about. We get one chance to do this right, and it's the same industry that told us that the BP wells in the Gulf weren't going to blow up. It's the same industry that told us that a well in northern Pennsylvania wasn't going to blow up, and yet those things happen. There are problems with this, and we can't just say it's going to be safe enough. And oh, by the way, we get most of our natural gas from Canada. Last I checked, they weren't lining up at the border to invade us.
And when we refer to we, I do that subconsciously. Because in life, I understand that it's not individuals who give you your success. We as my family, Matt. We as my campaign team. We as the people that I surround myself with within my office. And that's a philosophy we bring to the table. And we're going to bring down to Washington, D.C. because it's not going to be an individual in the House of Representatives where you're one of 435. You have to reach across and develop teams and alliances and coalitions. And that's what we're going to do. Now, I will tell you, there are legitimate concerns with the development of natural gas. I recognize that. But I'm familiar with the Pennsylvania Land Trust Association report that you're referring to. We took a look at it. And as reported in the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, 500 of those violations were administrative violations. 235 of them dealt with erosion control measures that weren't followed. So you're here saying that those violations directly impact the groundwater supply. That's not 100% accurate, folks. We need to rely on the science and data.
Mr. Reed, can I ask a follow-up question? You talked about good regulation. Are you in favor of the FRAC Act, the so-called FRAC Act, that would amend the Safe Drinking Water Act and give environmental protection agencies authority over hydraulic fracturing and forcing gas companies to reveal the components of the water, the chemical?
Yeah. Familiar with the FRAC Act, and I think this illustrates the difference in philosophy of government between Matt and I. I am a strong proponent, as I said in our opening statement, that I am a strong supporter of states' rights and local government rights. Right now, the DEC is concluding its study that it did for 2 years. I think the state of New York is best suited to deal with the issues that are unique to our backyard, and they're well suited to deal with the issues and address them. Why spend millions of dollars in New York State for the DEC, and then at the EPA come in and spend millions of dollars at the federal level to study the same issues? To me, it's a state's issue, and I defer to the states to address it.
Mr. Zeller, in favor of the FRAC Act?
Yes, I support the FRAC Act, and I'd also like to point out, the same report that you criticized me on says 50 instances of improper construction casing. That's the casing of the well degrading and failing and allowing methane and fracking solution to intermix with your drinking water. 212 documented cases of faulty pollution prevention, 91 violations of the Pennsylvania Clean Stream Law, 150 violations of the discharge of industrial waste, 162 violations of improper construction of wastewater impoundment. Tom, these are people's homes. It's how they live. They're not animals. We've got to think about how we're going to be able to make sure that the people in this audience can, one, sell their house going forward, and if they have methane contamination, they can't do it. There's not a bank on the planet that will write them a mortgage.
Thank you.
And two, how they'll be able to shower, consume water, live.
Thank you. Question to Mr. Reed. Recently, the think tank Empire Center for New York State put out a report saying that over 15 years, New York State lost more jobs than any state. What specific plans do you have to bring jobs back to the 29th Congressional District?
Obviously, that's of great concern. That's the number one issue I think that we're facing as a nation. You know, Matt said last night that we're better off today than we were 2 years ago. We're not better off than 2 years ago. We're at $14 trillion in national debt. People are unemployed, pushing 10%. Traveling 72,000 miles, you see people who are struggling to make it day and day. I empathize. My heart goes out. I can feel that. And we're going to take that into consideration. We're not some monster up here. When we listen to people, we truly try to listen. What we have to focus on are opportunities. Marcellus Shale is an opportunity. You know our position on it. I think that will bring jobs to our local area. I support the wind industry. We have opportunities there that have been explored, and that needs to be promoted. I support an all-of-the-above energy approach, dealing with things such as biomass and the other areas, nuclear, further wind, solar. I think Matt and I agree on that we need to explore alternative energy and renewables. I support that. And those are opportunities that we need to push and that we need to promote. And we can do that in a way that provides a structure where our federal government recognizes that it has to step back from adopting regulations that are crushing the private sector. Because government itself cannot create jobs. Government, to me, can provide an environment upon which the private sector can create long-term jobs and prosperity for our nation. So I am very sensitive to the regulatory burdens as a small business owner who's opened 4 small businesses on my own, started in a cubicle no bigger than the corner of that room over there. That regulatory burden is tremendous. Also, we have to look at the tax pressures and the tax burden that is put on the private sector of America. Now, we are not talking right now about tax cuts. We're talking about tax incentives and supporting incentives. But what fundamentally we have to do is focus on the spending side of the ledger, commit to making hard decisions to institutionally and organizationally change the way the federal government operates so that we can bring the expenses down, the economy will recover, revenues will go up, and then we'll come into a balanced state. I take the approach that you can go to the spending side of the ledger, because that's the side of the ledger you can actually control. And if you draw a line in the sand like we propose, where we have supported a hard cap budget limit across the board, what that means is $3.8 trillion was our budget last year. Next year, $3.8 trillion is our budget for the next year. No more. Now let's have the dialogue and force the discussion as to where we can cut, where we can be more efficient, where we can remove the redundancies. Matt has some good ideas. He's identified some individual programs, and there's redundancy for his top secret clearance that he talks about. I support that, and those are what we need to do.